I'm kicking this off.
You are.
Well,
as a reticent Protestant.
This is Who versus episode 5 or 6 or 1,000. I can't keep track. It seems like it's been forever. No, it doesn't. No one listens. But we have Megan Basham here, and we're very excited to have her. And all the right people are angry at her right now, which is how you know you're doing the Lord's work.
There's a lot of right people.
Yes. Yeah. They have a saying in DC, if you're not taking flack, you're not over the target, and you're taking flack.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know, Phil, like, I think most people know Megan at this point. We don't have to get into biographical details, but a mother, a wife, a Christian, a reformer, a patriot. Really?
Yes, all of that. That's correct.
All of that.
And a little bit I've heard of a troublemaker. So.
A troublemaker, certainly. Tell us about, well, what prompted you to write this?
I mean, really, it was just my own personal experience. This was how it started. I had my kids, as you just said, they were at a Christian school. We're homeschooling now, but our church that we were at the time, in my Christian workplace, I was working for an evangelical magazine, and I was experiencing all of the things that I write about in this book on a personal level. Suddenly I had the children's ministry director at our church sent out an email about how we could talk to our kids about their white privilege. So that was a big record scratch moment for me. Our workplace, which was, very evangelical. It was Christian, but it turned into a little bit of a war zone. Those fault lines that Vodi Bakum wrote about really became apparent as, I would say, there was the Frenchian wing and maybe like more the MacArthur wing, and it became this battle over social justice and all of these issues. So I experienced it, and then I went, where is this coming from? And so as I started writing about these things for the Daily Wire and doing some reporting, it just got such a huge response. I mean, so many people emailed and said, man, this is what's happening here. And then there was just so many threads to pull, I couldn't even keep up with them.
Sure.
I sort of see some parallels with politicians, right? So a lot of people run for Congress and they say, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and I'm going to, defend the Constitution, do all these things. And they get here and 99% of them never actually do that. And they never take a risk to actually defend those things. And we always ask ourselves, why is that? Is it the swamp? We call it, drinking Potomac water, that sort of thing. So in your case, with the sort of pastors you're dealing with, are these folks who are well-intentioned and then just go down a bad path? Or are these people, in your book, are they getting bought off? Why is it that so many of these people actually end up, basically doing some of the ill-conceived things that you're writing about? What is it that gets them? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it just corruption?
Is it power?
Is it power?
Elitism.
It's really all of the above. I took so much flack over this book because of the title, because, some people try to pretend like they don't know that titles can be both literal and figurative. And they're like, well, this guy is not for sale. You don't have a check and a smoking gun that you showed of a receipt. I'm like, okay. Some of these guys, I do have that for. Some of these guys were actually in bed with George Soros organizations, taking money from those people. But some of them are downstream from that. And these are the guys who are really being influenced by the Friendship Network. So, they may not have really thought through, say, Langford's border bill, but they got a call from another pastor friend of theirs who assured them that, hey, this evangelical immigration table is really great. They're doing good work. You should sign on to this statement of principles. And so they do it. And they don't know that statement of principles that's really general, that's something that any of us would agree with. It's something like, every immigrant, whether legal or illegal, is made in the image of God. Well, I agree with that, of course.
Who wouldn't?
And
exactly.
And they take those statements, and then what they do is they use them to say, oh, look, all the evangelicals or all of the Christians, all of the conservative Christians want you to back this particular bill, when there's really no evidence that was what that pastor or that lawmaker's constituents really intended with this group. So that's the kind of thing that you're seeing. And I will say this, you also have those who aren't specifically bought off financially, but there's a kind of currency that is simply that elite respectability, and the Beltway knows that better
Sure.
than anyone.
Mhm.
Yep.
And hey, everybody likes to be praised. Well, I don't, but everyone likes to be praised in the
Yeah.
Washington Post.
That's our
in the New
stock and
York
trade
Times.
here. Is
Right.
That.
And so
Yeah.
that is, I think that's part of what motivates some of these well-known Christian leaders is, look, Ruth Graham in the New York Times says nice things about them. Sarah Pulliam Bailey at the Washington Post says nice things. And suddenly they say more of those things.
Right. Basically, if those people are saying nice things about you, you're doing it wrong. Like I said,
Right.
how we opened it, like all the, and I don't know if this was on camera or not, but all the right people are not happy with you. And that's how you know. That's how you know you're doing the right thing. It's like if the Washington Post is saying good things about you, you ain't on target.
Mhm.
Right.
So what is an evangelical?
Well, I
what
mean,
did it mean and what does it mean now? Because
Right,
what is an
right.
evangelical?
and that's such a huge topic, and
Yeah.
books have been written on the
Sure.
topic. But I distill it down to something really simple, which is just it is people who believe that they have a commission to evangelize the world. They have a commission to evangelize their culture. So they believe that they are saved by grace through faith, and not works. So maybe separate a little bit from some traditional
Phil.
Catholic doctrine. But these are the things that define an evangelical.
Yeah.
And so they feel they have a strong mandate to fulfill the Great Commission.
Mhm.
Now, you can argue about how that's developed over time in the sense that it is true that we now have more people identifying as evangelicals since Donald Trump was in office and elected in 2016. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
But essentially, I think at its root, it's still people who, even if they can't articulate it, they really want to impact their culture for
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So you know, we hear about this mysterious, this squishy definition of what an evangelical is. How important is the, and I'll put it capital E, evangelical vote coming into less than a month now?
Yeah,
How-
you tweeted out recently a study about something like 30 million evangelicals. I mean, they have the number wrong. Aren't going to be voting this year.
We're not
because-
great with
Right.
numbers here.
No, that's true.
We're not number
because
people.
they've been basically told, you know, Trump doesn't have the moral character to be president. Maybe it's that Frenchian wing you were talking about. Like to James's point, these people could easily swing an election in one way or another. So how important are they for Trump to win or for any kind of conservative candidate to win?
Well, they're incredibly important. And I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit tonight
Good.
in my remarks. And that study just came out, I think, yesterday. And so they talked about how 30 million, not just evangelicals, because evangelicals is a huge part of the American electorate. I mean, somewhere between 25 to 30%, depending on who you're talking to and how they parse it. But this particular study was breaking down the regular churchgoers. So
Sure.
these aren't the evangelicals in name only. These aren't the people who
Faithful churchgoers.
Right. So these
Yeah.
are the regular churchgoers, and 30 million of them staying home is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that Trump cannot win without them. I mean, this is one of his most significant
Sure.
constituencies. And not just that, I think, you know, when you look at the left and progressives, they very much recognize the importance of evangelicals. The Atlantic has called them America's most powerful voting bloc.
Yeah.
They are. And I think that's why there has been such an effort to, if they can't
Yeah.
co-opt those votes, at least suppress it.
Is there something beyond pastors not being supportive of Trump that's keeping him home? Like what else is there that's making him hesitant to vote, you know, one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pastoral messaging that has gone out from a lot of well-known leaders, that is a big part of it. But the other piece is, look, this abortion issue is complicating things. You have a lot of people who that is a very important issue to them. When they get conflicting messages, it tends to dampen enthusiasm. So we can debate whether or not that was wise. I question whether it was. But what they need to realize is it creates an opening for some of these voices who are trying to suppress the evangelical vote to come in and say, well, look, we don't even have a pro-choice candidate, so you might as well not vote. And that messaging has gone out.
It's kind of a perfect seagay to, is that a Latin term? That's probably a Latin term. Edit. Strong edit on that. But that kind of gets into your book, which is they knew how knows how important the evangelical vote or the Protestant vote or the godly vote, the faithful churchgoer vote is. And if you can't beat them, join them. But they don't just join them. They made a concerted effort to infiltrate and turn it. So could Could you
Right.
elaborate? I mean, that's your book right
It
there.
is. It is. And something that I really want to emphasize is that this is not just my theory.
Yeah.
I mean, there are memos.
You have the receipts.
Right. From George Soros's
Yeah.
foundation, Open Society, saying that that was their intention. So
Yeah.
if you go back to like 2012, you have one of his program directors saying, hey, we have a problem that these religious voters aren't going to go away. And so instead of just opposing them, and I'm of course paraphrasing here,
Sure.
but
Mm-hmm.
instead of just opposing them, what we need to do is figure out how to convince them that our program is part of living out their religious faith.
And just to be clear, there's two ways. They have that stated mission. You can dilute their vote by
Mhm.
just like making them confused, or you can co-opt them. You don't.
Right.
They don't all have to vote for abortion or
Mhm.
open borders, right? You can just make them feel so ashamed that they don't vote. Correct.
Correct. And that
Yeah.
I think has been a really successful effort on the part of some of the people that are associated with David
Mhm.
French. One of the guys I want to talk about tonight, who's actually not in my book because
Oh,
this kind of developed
please.
after.
That's a whole separate book.
Yeah,
Please,
that's why I got a new
please
book
drop
coming.
this person's name them, and shame them.
But a ministry leader named Ray Ortland, who
I haven't heard of Ray Ortland.
So he's really well known in Presbyterian circles, in
Okay.
Reform circles. He's a council member at the Gospel Coalition. He has two sons who are also, very influential theologians. One has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube where he does these apologetics videos. And we kind of tangled over one he did on climate change, arguing that Christians need to take up the issue of climate change and back fossil fuel regulations.
Sure, that's 1 John, and no,
Right.
It's like Andy Stanley. Like the apple turns
would
out
say-
sometimes falls far from the tree.
Right. In this case, they're very aligned. So Ray Ortland, who is very influential, came out and said that he would be voting for Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
So,
because he loves Molech and sacrificing babies
and
to
what was
Molech.
interesting, then he immediately got all this pushback, and he said, well, I'm just going to take it down. I'm being misrepresented. But he didn't say how. He didn't say, oh, never mind, I'm not voting Harris.
I'm only little bit sacrificing children to Molech, just a little bit. Right?
But so he has been involved with this David French organization, the
Yeah.
After Party, that I do write about in the book. And their efforts have been very much, you do not have a civic duty to vote. As a Christian, it can be very confusing. You don't
Right.
necessarily.
Dilute, co-opt, or
Yes.
dilute. That's what it is. Get them to vote for your thing, or dilute them. Get them so confused that they don't show up. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Christ didn't vote. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Jesus
Because
Christ
he
didn't
lived
vote.
in the exact same type of
Yeah. Totally
governmental
open
system
society,
that we do.
Democratic Republic. He was from Nazareth. Maybe he voted in Bethlehem because he was born there. Who knows?
You were talking a little bit before about George Soros. For the people that don't know, could you kind of break down the spider web of the network that is like influencing people either directly or indirectly, to sort of go down this path? How deep does this all go?
So the shepherds are for sale. Who's buying them?
Okay, so you need to look at various issues because various billionaire funders on the left
They have their pet issue.
right, and just like kind of Arabella and some of this other dark networks, you see money flowing from one organization to another. So the Open Society Foundation gives money to the Tides Foundation, and then that money flows into the Evangelical Environmental Network. So all of that is a lot to track.
Evangelical Environmental Network is a thing.
Yes, that is
That's a
thing.
thing. Okay.
It is a front group.
Learned about that just now.
Yes. The
ERLC, EIT.
There's so many
There's
acronyms
so many E's.
to keep track
There's a lot
of.
of
You
E's
cannot
that-
imagine. Whenever
Yeah.
I'm giving talks, I have to back it up because I can see people going, wait, what now?
Just have a glossary. Just walk with a glossary.
And sometimes there's acronyms within acronyms.
Sure,
So you've got
sure.
the evangelical.
Well, we're in DC, so
Right.
we are the
You
king
know.
of acronyms.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love acronyms.
So if you look at the Evangelical Environmental Network, it has been taking millions from the Clinton
Tides.
Global Initiative, from Tides, from Rockefeller, from all of these groups. And so what they do is initially it was a different group that was falling under I want to say it was National Council of Churches, but I think there was more letters in there.
Mhm.
But they realized that they had a problem with evangelicals in particular. And there was a lot of Catholics involved with the umbrella group, but it was very ecumenical. It also had Jewish groups involved with it. It was not Christian explicitly. And they realized, okay, those all important evangelical voters, they're a problem. How do we get them? So they said, we need to create a group that is just targeted to the evangelicals. I would say an AstroTurf front group.
Yeah.
And so these millions poured into that organization. And when you look at some of the documents that came out of it, they were very clear that what we are trying to do is harness the influence of some high-profile evangelical leaders. So we're going to spend this money. We're going to create this group. And then what we're going to do is hope that someone like a Rick Warren, which they got, will sign on to our program, and that his influence will then trickle down to the people in the pews. So that's how this process works. And you see it play out in the same way on immigration, on gun control, on, whatever these sort of progressive priorities are. And then what they do is they try to supplant the political issues of the right and saying that these are the moral equivalent. So they would say, okay, if you really want to be pro-life, then you have to get on board with this gun control initiative that we're backing. When, of course, for gun control, no one's trying to pass a law to allow people to shoot children in the classroom.
Turns out that's already illegal.
Right.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
And so, but, that's kind of the sleight of hand, the moral sleight of hand that they're doing, is to pretend like these things are the moral equivalent. Or they will even say, and they have said, that if you want to be pro-life, you need to back these climate change initiatives. And scientifically, it was super dubious, but, they put out some documentation claiming that pollution affects babies in the womb. So for that reason, it's just as important that you back cap and trade as to.
If you is there a group of faithful out there that you would say is most immune to this sort of corruption? Like, is there anybody that you're looking at that's question. Like they have the tools to not sort of like be susceptible to this?
I mean, I have felt, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but it has felt to me like someone on the outside as a Protestant that conservative Catholics are better equipped to philosophically argue with this kind of thing and to see it for what it is.
Yeah. Why do you, that gets to a larger question about Protestant intellectuals, right? Catholic intellectuals, there's, there's hundreds, if not thousands. Why are there not more? And are you familiar with, I know William Wolfe, but Aaron Renn is another guy.
Yes, love Aaron.
He decries where are the Protestant intellectuals? Where are the Protestant social teaching, the moral teaching on practical things? Catholics, what they are so good at is the practical, making the theoretical practical to you and your family. Where are they, and do they exist, the Protestant teachers?
I mean, it feels like, and I always want to preface by going, Arizona State grad, it ain't me.
No.
But
me neither.
I do feel like we are seeing a generation of those kind of Protestant thinkers rise up, and I enjoy, listening to them, reading them. But it's a very new thing.
Right.
And I think
why is that a new thing? Why, were we sleeping? Were we resting on our laurels that this is a Protestant nation and we just we're a Bible believing nation? And of course we have a shared moral code.
I mean, I think that's part of it. And I think there's always been such a tradition of sacred secular divide in Protestantism. And that's part of what has made it really easy for them to bring in. I mean, even an Arizona State grad can see the sophistry in Jesus is neither left nor right,
He was a revolutionary.
Let's not get involved in that.
He was a revolutionary. Love your neighbor.
Right.
Well, love your neighbor is don't let your neighbor do something that will affect their eternal soul. Yeah. For me, that's loving my neighbor, but
And maybe it's loving my neighbor, to in this life right now say, I don't want my neighbor to live in a hellhole of chaos and disorder and law breaking.
Yeah.
But I do think that is part of the reason that evangelicals, because they're not as intellectual. And I also think, we didn't talk about this, but part of the historical background of evangelicals is they didn't have the education that you see from Catholics, that you see from Jews, from other groups. And so for that reason, I think it made them sitting ducks on some really bad intellectual arguments. But on the other hand, let me just give a little disclaimer there, which is your average car mechanic who knows his Bible really well can take all this stuff apart in an instant and usually spots it faster than the megachurch pastor. So if you're somebody who's, you're not a PhD, but man, you know your Bible and you're in the Word, you're covered too. You're probably well protected against this kind of thing.
Since you brought it up, the megachurch pastor, the useful idiot, if I will, if I may, are they the most easiest bought off shepherds? The people that are not grounded in the word and are just there to entertain, and the seeker-sensitive church.
Yes.
Never talk about sin.
Because they're already set up, right, to pursue celebrity. So that's part of what they're doing. You have that fear of man. You have that desire to be liked, to win the applause. So if they're already doing that, it's not a real far step to then say, well, I'm just not going to talk about these things anymore because and they'll give you a really spiritual reason. We want to do life in circles, not rows. And I'm never really clear what that means. That's an Andy Stanley thing. Like he says, we don't want, basically, I don't want to just teach to you from the pulpit what's right and wrong. I want you to be in circles, working this stuff out.
I've seen a supercut of pastors saying that. It's like a 15-minute supercut of different pastors saying that. And as a Catholic, I had no idea what that meant. So thank you for
explaining liberal what that gobbledygook.
It's so embarrassing. I'm going to be honest.
Circle. What is this circle? Circle maker.
I think you bring up like a really good point that I don't think either of us had considered, is that the evangelical group really truly believe in America, separation of church and state, as we've been told our whole life, whether that's correct or not, and we should be thinking of it that way. That's a different discussion. And because of that, they got screwed. They really did. They were
particularly Baptists. I mean, Baptists are so jumpy about suggesting that in any way we want to like strongly apply biblical principle.
I'm hearing my father-in-law right now in the room.
Yeah. Your father-in-law a Baptist?
Big time.
Oh, really?
So I'm a Baptist now.
Congratulations.
As of like a year or two ago.
Southern or what flavor?
SBC, yeah. I am a Baptist now. For a couple of years now. And I, have a great pastor, and we haven't really delved into the fight, the law amendment, and all that stuff. We don't hear that. I hear it from William, of course. But anyway.
Well, here's the thing with Southern Baptists, too. Yeah. And this is a different.
They're Southern. They're evil. How dare you be Southern?
I love
South?
The Southern character.
Do you not understand that Southern automatically means racist? That's.
But part of what divides them from Catholics and why, and this is both a feature and a bug, I would say, is that because they do not have that authority structure. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And if you want to leave, you can leave. And
that's Protestantism.
That is Protestantism. And I do think
we don't have
that has its Pope. Benefits, but
in Jesus Christ, we don't have a Pope.
Which when you have a Pope who says something, they're like, wait, what?
Wait a second, hold on. Let's refilter that.
Yeah. Don't get me talking about the Pope. I'm not, I'm going to get in trouble with my friends.
Right. So, I mean,
that's
a positive thing. But on the other hand, if
we're a diffuse network.
Right. And you also tend to have then leadership that nobody elected, but it's really easy to manipulate the system. Like if you look at somebody like a J.D. Greer, who's a big Southern Baptist megachurch pastor.
Yeah, he's a mega guy.
Right.
Smokes and lasers. That's all you need to know.
It's sort of like if all of these leader guys get together and go, well, we're really going to amplify this guy. And they're able to work the media to make it seem like he has more rank and file support than he does. And that's a really effective gambit that doesn't work as well when you have a formal authority structure.
Sure. Yeah, you can't get away with that. Speaking of Greer, a couple verses. I wrote verses. We're who verses. This is verses with an E. 2 Corinthians 6:14, I'm paraphrasing, don't be unequally yoked. Light and darkness, they have no interaction. So these megachurch pastors or these people that I think ultimately what it is elites versus normies. We're normies. Elites want to be accepted by elites. If you buy into the culture, the only thing that feeds your soul is reinforcement from the culture. But we are told countless times throughout the Gospels and the New Testament that like there is no interaction with light and darkness. Jesus Christ said it. Matthew 12, I wrote it down because I can't memorize the verses. I've always been bad at that. He that is not...
Well, you grew up Catholic, so you don't know the Bible.
I've never read it. He that is not with me is against me. He that doesn't gather to him scatters. I mean, how could it be more clear cut? How could you be the guy that's wearing like the best Nikes or whatever it is? Like, what do they defend themselves against your book that calls them out? And you don't specifically call the mega pastor out that's got the coolest clothes, but like, what are they doing?
Right. I mean, that was a different topic than my book, but we could have, I mean, but I think Preachers in Sneakers, which if you have not seen this account, Do Catholics know preachers and sneakers?
It's the first I'm hearing of.
It's-
What is this? I'm going to look it up right
the
now.
best.
It's some of these preachers, some of these mega church pastors, their sneakers are more than you make
Like
in a month.
thousands and
More
thousands
than you
of
make in a month.
dollars. Yeah.
What are these?
And
Okay.
like, why are they doing that? They know better. Do they think? And I don't want you to impute motives. I'm not going to put you on the
Right.
spot. But do you think that they think like I can just put my toe in the culture and convince people, convict them of their sin? Because only the Holy Spirit convicts them of their sin. Why are they doing this?
Well, in part,
in your
as
mind?
far as the preachers, are we talking about the preachers and sneakers or the guys I write about in my book?
All of them, they're the same.
Well, I feel like the preachers and sneakers guy, they're trying to create an aspirational image. You know?
Yeah.
So that's part of what, that there's a Christianity that's like
kind of cool and flashy.
yeah, it's cool. We're the
But your
cool
guys in your
Christians.
book
It's
that
like
are
I'm
for
not
sale.
a regular Christian. I'm a cool Christian.
Check out, I skateboard.
Well,
I
it's
got
funny
tattoos.
you say that. I typed in preachers and sneakers and got the hashtag. So if your preacher wears a $2,000 sweater to preach on Sundays, find a different church.
Yes.
And he's wearing a
By
Neiman
the
Marcus
way,
sweater.
How awful is that sweater?
I mean,
Yeah,
People
it's
can't see
always
it on
the
camera, but
ugliest
it's
stuff.
salmon pink and it
Right.
looks like it was knitted by his grandma.
You know, the guys in your book, why are they for sale? How could they be bought if they every day take up their cross and follow Christ? How are they bought? Why are they bought?
I mean, I think that's a really good question
Acceptance?
for them. And let me tell you that a lot of them would not answer it. I reached out to a lot of people. I reached out to
I've
Andy's-
read.
Yeah.
J.D. Greer.
Tim Keller, Rick
Keller, rest in
Warren.
peace.
Yes. I mean, I
boy.
reached out to these people. They
Yeah.
didn't respond.
Sure.
And when I look at why they're doing it, I did try very hard not to impute motive.
Sure.
But
You've been very careful. I've
I can tell you
watched
the
your stuff.
response has not been
Yeah.
like what I expected when the book came out was for example, like someone like J.D. Greer to defend his position, to say, no, listen, I stand by the fact that I said that we are going to implement a racial quota for the Southern Baptist Convention where we're going to have 2/3 of our committee appointments be minorities or women, because I think it's important, because he'd already said those things.
Yeah.
So it was really bizarre to me that suddenly he was writing an essay in response to my book saying,
Yeah.
that's not what I stand for. And
It's like you said
I'm like,
it.
it's literally right here.
Form a counter argument. You said it.
Right.
So
And that
defend
was
it.
what was really bizarre to me. I mean, even dumb stuff like, I don't wear Patagonia.
Yeah, that was. By the way, we have not played Jenga one moment. This is part of it. Here's why we do Jenga. It's not a weird thing we try to do to like mess with people. We do it because it gets us out of our heads, and we say the most honest truth when we play
You got to
Jenga.
stack it up top, man.
Is that how it goes? I'm
go.
not great at Jenga. Filling her up. But yeah, he's like, I don't wear Patagonia. Okay, dude.
Like,
that's,
it was
that's
really
not the
bizarre
thrust
things.
of this argument. It's not the thrust.
And by the way, I found pictures of him, and if not in Patagonia, then in very Patagonia-like gear.
Patagonia.
Right.
Fratagonia, as we call it. I mean, dressing like a.
You're looking for the loose ones,
I'm
huh?
looking
Yeah.
for the tap.
Good.
There we go.
Smart.
You know what the best thing about your book is? Maybe the pastors aren't reading it, but you know who is? Their flock.
Yeah.
Everybody
And their
else.
flock will just start moving away from those types of guys and finding people who are actually carrying the word. And those churches are going to explode
Right.
because they're actually teaching the right thing. And so I love for these guys to figure it out and start, because they have this huge network. They have big buildings, they have everything else. They have the money and the resources. But ultimately, it's the people attending the church that are going to figure out, you know what? This guy's full of it.
And I can tell you that that's happening. Not
Yeah.
just, I mean, I'm
So let's
receiving
talk about that.
a
So, like,
lot of letters.
Like, do you have any, like, what is happening? How many folks are leaving some of these, like, churches that are where they're hearing this message and going to more conservative churches that are carrying the word?
I mean, I only have anecdotal data. I mean, I can tell you that so many people have messaged me. I have had, I'll say people that you would know, authors that you would know, tell me they have been in communication with people like at J.D. Greer Summit Church who said, we had to leave. Here's why we had to leave because of these things. And they had witnessed it themselves. So it's not like they just read my book and said, I totally buy everything she's saying, even though I never saw anything like that. It was like it just confirmed a disquiet that they were already experiencing. And that was why they left.
It's a new aperture through which they can look at what they're doing every Sunday.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
This is dangerous. Well, I had to leave my church in 2019.
So did I.
I left my church because I was told my wife was working nursery, my firstborn, and my secondborn was in nursery, and she didn't believe me. It was not a mega church, but it was a satellite church where there's a bunch of different things. We had a pastor up there, and my wife is in the nursery just wrangling kids because that's what they do to moms, by the way.
Right.
Churches need to stop that. The old ladies need to work the nursery.
Amen.
The moms with kids need to sit in the pews and have 1 hour of not wrangling kids. The old ladies need to do that. So that's,
or like, the teenage girls.
Or
you're like,
teenage
let's
girls.
Get them some training.
Anyone but the moms. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're a mom, you're stressed and you haven't slept for 4 days. Work the nursery with 9 kids.
This is during service?
This is during service. Stop that. We're done with that.
Oh man, you would hate my church. It's like a casino.
Yeah.
It's like Disney World. Every pew's got kids. They're screaming. They're eating crackers.
That's
good. It's wild.
I'm actually really coming around to that. So we don't do that at our church. My kids are older now.
Yeah.
But do you know?
Maybe don't take them
Hans
out.
Fine. He's a Lutheran pastor. He does.
I haven't heard it.
Oh my gosh, he has a hilarious
The thing
YouTube
about
channel.
leave them in.
Called Lutheran Satire. Which it's close
There's a lot
to
to
Catholic.
There's
right?
a lot to be
Lutheran?
satire. It's
Yeah.
Catholic light. A lot to satire.
No, but he did a great thing on the lack of logic and saying, let's isolate our kids where they cannot see mom and dad
Yeah.
experiencing the means of grace.
Like, what's the best way
Put
for
'em in a
kids
room
to figure out that?
Let
like,
them
they love
fight it
being in
out.
church.
Yeah. I'm
They're like,
with that.
they do a little song that will make a macaroni cross and then we all will be redeemed.
Yeah.
That's right. It's the macaroni
Carry that to the
cross.
pearly
And,
gates. Hey, St. Peter, I got this macaroni
There you go.
artwork I
I
made
mean, I
for
worked
you.
super hard. I had some crayons, but so that's an entire podcast right there. And we should have Megan back to talk about that.
She's not coming back.
She's not coming back. She's figured it
No,
out.
I have to play Jenga.
we're
now.
playing
I gotta
Jenga.
Win. I know.
There it is. She's playing Jenga. It was that quick. But so my wife's there, and a woman who I assume was paid, African-American woman, came up and said, it's time to confess our sins. I said, okay, I'm a Protestant, communal confession of my sins. This is a little bit outside my comfort zone, but what are my sins? Well, slavery. My family came here post-Civil War, most of them. My grandmother was born in Ireland, was not a slave owner.
How far back do we want to go?
Yeah,
here?
they did not specify, but if you were white, you stand up and a public confession of your sins. And I got up and I walked out. And I've never walked out of a movie. I'm not that bold.
Yeah.
I've been in some crappy movies. I've never walked out of a movie. I walked out of a sermon because this woman asked me to confess sins that I did not commit. I am happy to confess my own sins, which I have many and which we all do, and we all have to confess them, but to confess sins for antebellum slavery that not just I didn't have part to do, my ancestors had nothing to do with. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. I quit.
And
how much of DEI, like that sounds to me like DEI, like how much of that has penetrated churches?
That was George Floyd era.
I mean, and that was what was fascinating to me were the guys who absolutely are on record. They did this. They used the rhetoric. They talked about their white privilege. You had Matt Chandler, another well-known megachurch pastor, doing a whole video on how to understand white privilege. He did the whole knapsack of privilege that he takes around with him. And they have not repudiated these things.
Good reminder of all his privilege.
Right,
it's
but
ridiculous.
they're trying to now back away from that, and they don't confront. Like I think he said something kind of vague to someone in response to a single Instagram post, like I might word that differently today, but they haven't repudiated it.
I might.
And let's be clear about how bad that got. I mean, I covered a church in the book. Well, and it was just an example. It was a representative example of what was going on all over, where they were segregating their Bible study classes. They said this Bible study class is going to be for minorities because they need the space to lament.
Sure.
And when you think about there is neither Jew nor Greek, and
I was just gonna
hearing you say that makes me so angry. I might throw these Jenga blocks at James.
Neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free. We're all one in Christ. Male, female, not a thing. Complementarianism versus equality. What all that liberal gobbledygook that they come up with. We're all one in Christ because he conforms all things to himself. And yet let's divide each other up on a strictly American thing. Do you think they're doing this in the Chinese church? The church in China?
No.
Are they doing this?
I think they got bigger problems
They are
to
not.
worry about.
And that's kind of the point. What is the future of Christianity? Is it dead in the West? There's still a faithful flock in the West, but is the future of Christianity China? Because that's what I think. That's a loaded question.
Wow.
So please reinforce what I'm saying. No.
I mean,
what's the future?
I want that for China, but I also
so
want it
want
for
that.
America.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I want a revival
hope
here.
Not. I hope that that's, not the case. I hope Christianity is firing in all nations on all fronts
Yeah.
because I don't want my people either to miss out on the blessing of revival and a purified church.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's not the case.
I think, not to get dark, I think the persecuted church is a pure church, because who's going to hang around if it's easy to go to church every other Sunday, but when you might go to jail or go to the salt mines or, a concentration camp in China, that's a pure church, because no one who is not serious, has not seriously had a changed heart by Christ, is going to stick around for that. And I just don't see it in the U.S., and Europe is gone.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I
Black
also
pill.
think we need to talk about the value of having that religious freedom to proselytize, to live out our faith, because I don't have it in front of me, but I remember reading once, and I don't even remember where I saw it, but they were talking about North Korea, and they said, actually,
Beyond me.
North Korea, it is very dark, and there is not, even though, there's an underground church, it is very persecuted, and you do not get the level of Christianity that you get in other nations. So I'm not quite sure. Okay, we need to look at that biblically. What's the secret sauce to going?
Yeah.
How do we have this revival without saying, let's go ahead and sacrifice our religious freedoms, because we don't want that.
No, we don't.
Just to give everybody a sense of how dark North Korea is and how relatively good we have it here. We had Yeonmi Park on the podcast a couple weeks ago. She told us in North Korea, they don't have a word for love.
Wow.
So like when you talk about Christianity, like the first word that comes to mind is love. They don't have that concept there. So we have
There's
a lot
no
of work
word
to do
for it.
here for sure, but we are not behind the 8 ball the way that they are. But
Wow.
late in about 20 minutes or so, you're going to be speaking to a group of folks here in Washington, D.C. at our Off the Record speaker series. For just a few minutes, I want to talk about your previous book about husbands and wives that is guaranteed to be on my wife's reading list. And she'll probably tell me all about it in that hour or so we have before the kids wake up in the morning. Can you just sort of briefly talk to us about what that book was about and what message you were trying to share through that? Because frankly, it's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was funny. People may not realize this, but this is not the first controversial book I've written. So my first book came out in 2008, and it was days before the financial crash. And so it kind of wiped
Great
it off the
timing.
map. I know.
Great
It literally,
timing.
like 2 days before the financial crash, the book came out. But it was positioned as a mommy wars book, which if you guys might be too young to know this, we were new marrieds, and mommy wars books were very hot, where they were telling women, there was literally a book called Get to Work, a manifesto for women of the world, saying you need to be working professionally, you need to be earning a paycheck. This book literally said only have one baby, because if you have more than that, you might decide not to continue your
Written by
career.
Molech.
Yeah. No, it was written
Or
by
Kamala.
this
I don't
law
know.
professor, Linda Hirschman.
That checks out. Yeah.
And so I wrote this book in part as a reaction to all of this, but once again, because of my own personal experience. At that time, I didn't have kids yet. My husband and I were somewhat newly married, and we had a little trouble having kids, but I knew that when I had them, I didn't want to be in an office. I didn't want to be working. And all of my friends felt the same way. And so when we had these older feminists telling us, you have to be working, we kind of went like quietly, we're whispering to each other, I don't want to do that. Do you want to do that? No, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So I was really looking for a way to go, how do we in a 2-income culture manage to have the ability for me to stay home? And my husband and I were talking about it. And I happened to come across a lot of social science research showing that all other things being equal, married men make anywhere from like 10 to 40% more than otherwise identical single men. So there's something about and it
You have
increased.
to.
Right.
I have no choice. My wife stays at
Well,
home.
there's
One,
something
you have
to
to.
that.
Two, you want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you got something on the home front.
And you have the division of labor. And
Yeah.
also when I started talking to a lot of successful men, they were telling me, whose wives stayed home, they were saying, well, my wife made this huge contribution to my career. And a lot of times it would be women who had a few years of professional experience, or they had certain skills and talents. And they decided, here's how I'm going to apply these skills and talents to helping my husband get ahead. And I thought, well, I want to do that. And
you radical. How dare you?
So I actually did do that. My book came out in 2008. And then I really, I went on the Today Show and got screamed at by a different feminist from Vanity Fair.
I'm sure she's a really happy person.
Cat lady.
I actually feel bad. She is divorced now, and it's sad.
Does she have children?
2, yeah. And
do they know their names?
I don't.
She
I mean,
doesn't.
it was pretty.
Does she know her children's names?
I can just tell you the expression on Meredith Vieira's face when we went to the break, and she got.
Of course, it was. Yeah.
Meredith Vieira was really lovely to me. She actually apologized and said, "I've never had something like that happen here before."
But that's poking the hornet's nest, just like you did with this book,
right?
Why do you love trouble? No, I'm kidding. Why do you kick the hornet's nest every time? Because you tell the truth.
It's just.
You tell the truth.
What I've experienced in my life, and it was what I wanted. Sure. And so then I went off and did that for I don't know how many years, from 2008 until not just a couple of years ago when my kids were older. And, that's part of the message of the book is, hey, by the way, it turns out our lives are really long. And you can afford to take 10, 15, however many years you want out to actually value and parent your children.
Was it worth it?
So worth it. And let me tell you, the second I decided to
dip
my toe back into, I went, I've been working part-time for a lot of years. Maybe I'll take on a bigger role at World News Group.
Yeah.
Immediately, there were so many opportunities. Then I went over to Daily Wire. So many. It's almost like you can't keep up with all of the possible things you could do. And I went, okay, Lord, clearly, I'm not, maybe I won't be a Fox News anchor or whatever it is. Sure. But the blessings that I have had from my children more than make up for that. And I wouldn't change it in a minute.
Well, I got to say, this book is a blessing.
Yeah.
This book sort of peels back the veil behind what's going on. And I know we didn't get super deep into the book, but please read it. And the money that is coming in to either convert otherwise conservative evangelicals to Democrat voters or to just disincentivize them, just stay home. That's the game, because they're smart. The left is smart. The world is smart. Satan, let's call it, the kingdom of the power of the air is smart. Don't show up. You can't make a difference. And when you can co-opt a leader and pull their flock astray, bad shepherds. Yep. That's what it is, Phil. Bad shepherds. Megan, thank you so much for coming. You are a blessing and you are a patriot. And my golly, you've taken some arrows.
Well, thank you.
But from all the right people. That's how you know you're on target.
Thank you. And I'll just say that that's part of the advantage of being a stay-at-home mom for so many years is that when the arrows came, I went, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do? My kids
aren't sick. We don't have sniffles. No. There's not a mess. It's like it focuses you on what actually matters. Yeah. Right?
Amen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
All right.
James, you want to bring us back from the break?
Wow.
With our paid sponsor?
What a break it's been. Our paid sponsor, Alpo. Alpo.
Oh, the dogs.
If your dog eats food, he's going to love Alpo.
That's right.
I don't think this company exists anymore. But anyway, we got Phil here, and we have Odd Todd. We have Todd, our special guest.
Our good friend, Todd.
Okay, so I think the most important thing that we could possibly do is read the script from Point Break. Now, if you've seen the movie Point Break, and I assume you have, it's going to be a little different, but that's because they ad-lib, they improv, they do things a little different on camera. What the final take is not what the script. As a script writer, let me tell you, I've written a couple of movies.
You have?
Yeah, in my bathtub, I wrote some movies, one Western and one sci-fi, and they're both weird and they don't make sense. But as a script writer, you just assume it's not going to make it past final edit. So
what's the scene that we're reading now?
This is Point Break, probably the best movie. It won like 14 Academy Awards, I think. And it's Keanu Reeves. It's Patrick Swayze.
That's really it.
That's it. Well, Pappas. What's Pappas's name again? Busey. Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
Probably the most important actor and musician of the 20th century. It's a great movie. Early 90s. Anyway, I'll be reading the part of Bodie. Phil, who are you reading?
I'm going to be Utah.
You're Johnny Utah.
Johnny
Keanu
Utah.
Reeves. So I'm Swayze. You're Johnny Utah. Todd is going to read the stage cues, and then we've got Roach and what's Gromit. Roach and Gromit.
Played by Matt.
I'm ready for this.
We're doing both. All right.
All right, take us away.
Are you ready?
Hold on. We have to set the scene. What are we, where are they?
I was gonna set
Who
the
is
scene.
this versus?
That's a great. Who is this versus? This is versus the FBI, organized crime unit in L.A. that is anti bank robbing. Yeah. So the dead presidents, led by Patrick Swayze, has been robbing banks wearing the president's mask. Nixon, Johnson,
I thought you were talking about the
Reagan, LBJ. I think I said Johnson, but anyway, maybe Herbert Hoover. I don't know. Is he a president? James Garfield, Millard Fillmore,
Those are all presidents. Yeah.
James K. Bogue.
All right,
Some greats. Old Hickory.
What is the scene Todd is introducing?
So they have found out that Johnny Utah, FBI agent undercover, Keanu Reeves, Johnny Utah, he's been discovered. So they take him skydiving
as one would do,
to smoke him out, potentially kill him. Utah doesn't know. Todd, take us away.
exterior, desert airstrip, tight on a turboprop engine roaring. Wider reveals a big Cessna twin. The pilot, a weaselly guy we haven't seen before, fires up the second engine. The plane shudders eagerly in the metallic pre-dawn light. A desert airstrip near Palmdale. A couple of aluminum siding hangars and no tower. A few other planes around, but no activity besides Bodie's rock-steady crew. Utah watches Gromit whip back a tarp in the bed of Bodie's truck and starts tossing out a parachute packs. Roach tosses one to Bodie, who chucks it to Utah.
Ever done this before?
Once.
Pure adrenaline, right? The ultimate rush. Other guys snort for it, jab a vein for it. All you got to do is jump.
Sure, it's a blast. But listen, I sort of screwed up my knee yesterday.
Yeah, I noticed you limping. But don't worry about it, brah. Don't worry at all. We're not going to land on land.
Bodie grabs his sleeve, ushering him into the plane.
Oh, well, that's fine then. I feel so much better.
Cut to interior Cessna.
Cut to. I love that.
Utah sits wearing a Dayglow jumpsuit, hugging the chute in his lap. Next to him is the gaping door beyond a spectacular down sunburst at 10,000 feet. Roar of a wind and engines. Utah watches Bodie, Nathaniel, Gromit, and Roach wriggling into their colorful freefall suits. Nathaniel pulls on a pair of purple shorts over his suit. Looks real dorky. Gromit has on duck feet. Bodie apparently is going to jump barefoot. No one has their chutes on yet. Johnny hefts his as if weighing it, but somehow judging the contents. His brain is racing. Bodie shouts over the roar.
It's a little ceremony we always have at the end of summer. One last speed star.
So, who packed my suit?
I did. What's the matter? Don't trust me?
You got to earn trust.
Then we'll earn it together. Here, take mine.
Bodie swaps chutes with Johnny. Utah looks at the new chute uncertainly. Is this a game? Poker moves? Did Bodie anticipate this step?
Hey, you don't want Bodie's, man. His pack jobs suck. They only open half the time. Take Gromit's, man.
Roach's grin is evil as he grabs Gromit's chute out of his hands and switches it with Johnny's. Keep that one and gives his to Gromit.
Well, unfair, dude.
Gromit grabs his chute and hands Johnny the one he had, which was Roach's, I think. Johnny looks at the pack in his hands, then at the grinning faces. Russian surfer freefall roulette. Blank. Bodie studying him, some kind of test. F it. Utah starts putting the darn thing on.
We gonna jump or
My man.
Exterior, 10,000 feet. Dawn. Multicolored figures explode from the plane, leaping into freefall, tumbling over and over, tumbling end over end. Wearing headsets, they hurtle downward.
Utah, you good, brother?
Whoa! Whoa!
I'll take that as a yes.
One by one, they stabilize, falling face down, knees bent. They angle their hands and feet minutely to move laterally. Utah flails, the last one to trim out, but he's holding his own. Gromit, working his duck feet, pitches him down into the wild spin, rotating like a dervish in the head down dive. He flares out and flies back to the others. Rocketing through the void at 120 miles an hour, they seem to paradoxically hang above the world, almost unmoving, on a separate plane of existence. A hurricane of wind, wild hooting. Despite his terror, Johnny has to grin at Nathaniel, falling butt first like he's sitting on a big inner tube in the pool.
Whip it out, dudes. Cheap sex with the cosmos.
10,000 feet. Let's do it.
The ground stabilizes, moving together. First, Bodhi and Roach link arms, trimming constantly. Concentrating, Nathaniel flips over onto his stomach and maneuvers towards them. He grabs Roach's arms. Gromit works his way next to Nathaniel, locks in. They need Utah to complete the ring. 4 faces beckoning to him, distorted by the hurricane wind.
Come on, Johnny, get in here.
Johnny moves his hand like flippers and gliders, clumsily towards them. Bodhi and Gromit grab him. He's in. A perfect 5-man star.
Relax, brah. I got you. I got you.
Righteous speed star, dudes.
You digging this?
Great!
Johnny is exhilarated more than he could have thought, screaming down through the dawn sky at 130, locked into the ring, part of something, connected to these guys far above the planet, less far every second. Bodhi's chest altimeter reads 6,000 feet.
Purdy 30 and we're meat waffles, folks. See you downtown.
He releases Roach's arm and the star disintegrates, drifting apart. Bodhi stays with Utah, falling parallel to the horizon, facing each other, holding hands. 4,000 feet. Airspeed 140.
Yep.
Gromit pulls his ripcord. He seems to be jerked upwards by a great force. Suddenly, he is far above a brightly colored disk of fabric. Utah is suddenly aware of the earth rushing at him. Nathaniel pulls, then Roach. They shoot upwards, disappearing. Bodhi and Utah fall on, alone.
You gonna pull?
After you, Alphonse. I insist.
Bodhi looks at Utah, a slow grin. The meter on his chest harness reads 2,000 feet, 150 miles per hour. 12 seconds to Valhalla.
Don't screw around, man. Pull it.
You do it. You first.
1,000 feet. Pull the cord.
You first.
Okay.
Bodhi reaches out suddenly and pulls Utah's ripcord handle. He waves goodbye as Johnny's canopy deploys. Utah is jerked upward. He feels his weight hanging brutally in the harness. Johnny looks down. Impossibly close to the ground, Bodhi's canopy bursts out with an explosion of color. Below him is the shimmering mirror of a large reservoir. 2 seconds later, the bright yellow canopy meets his reflection and goes slack. An explosion of white water marks Bodhi's impact. Low angle at water level as Utah hits. In slow motion, a glorious wall of backlit spray shouts skyward. Molten glass falling back into this bright desert dawn. Utah surfaces sputtering and shucks out of the harness. He floats like a jellyfish, gasping for breath.
Whoa, I gotta be losing it.
Yep. Yeah.
Man, I don't know about you guys, but I felt that.
See, I'm sweating.
Yeah, my heart is racing.
I'm sweating.
You want to go jump out of a plane?
Yeah, probably.
In multicolored jumpsuits?
It's funny. The actual episode is not episode. The scene is a little bit different. He's like, Johnny, are you ready to jump out of a perfectly good? They ad lib a little bit.
Swayze's a pro. He adds a little bit.
I love the plane shudders eagerly in the metallic pre-dawn light. I have not experienced personally a metallic pre-dawn light, but I want to.
Well,
that was
we have
impressively written for an action script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a lot. It's a lot of detail, and that's why it won 17 Academy Awards.
It swept that year, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
It even won Best Foreign Film, which is weird because it was made in America.
Original screenplay, original script, best foreign film.
Best acting, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Todd, what do you got? What do you got for us?
Yeah. Do
Glad
we
to
need
have Todd.
Do we need to introduce Todd?
Yeah, we got to introduce Todd. It's Todd.
Yeah. It's Todd. So people wouldn't know at home, but originally Who Versus was going to have Todd on every single week.
It almost couldn't have been a thing without Todd, so we're lucky to have him.
We are
so
lucky.
let's not abuse it.
No, we're happy he's here. He's a good man.
Todd, what do you got? You told me you wanted to talk about Tetris.
Well, yeah, there was a big breakthrough in NES Classic Tetris.
Okay.
The game that came out in 1989,
Yeah.
From Russia with Fun was the tagline. And now these...
That was Tetris's tagline,
Yes.
From Russia with Fun?
Yes, it was on the box.
I don't remember that.
Wait a minute. Isn't there a documentary about the creation of Tetris?
There's a movie
Right.
on Apple TV, made a movie, which is...
Is it
It was a
accurate?
Soviet game?
It is a Soviet game.
Yeah.
It's somewhat accurate, not accurate in other parts. There's no big car chase, but it's a movie, so you got to do something to
Sure.
jazz up a story of a video game licensing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it started in '84. Alexei Pajitnov created Tetris. There's a huge. It went spread like wildfire across the Eastern Bloc. Somebody found out about it from behind the Iron Curtain, and then wanted to get in the Iron Curtain, get the license. Huge fight. Finally got the license. Nintendo got the license, and they packaged it with their Game Boy systems.
Yeah.
Which blew it up sky high. And then the Nintendo version came out around the same time, 1989, which is the Game Boy version probably sold more copies, but everybody thinks of the Nintendo version.
That's what I was
with the
thinking
different
of.
colors.
I never had a Game Boy.
In terms of gameplay, what do you prefer, the console Nintendo or the Game Boy?
The console Nintendo. There's no question.
There's no-
I mean, it was a great novelty in the late 80s to have portable games, but
have a handheld. I remember there was a kid in my 5th grade, and that's how old I am, who had the handheld Game Boy, and he had a friggin' like
magnifying glass, Yeah, I've
over
seen
the
that.
top.
And it has lights too.
With the light
Yeah,
on it,
and it-
Because there's no backlight for
No,
the
no.
Game Boy. You just had to get
Yeah.
natural light or like attach a light to it. So
Yeah,
I
that
prefer the
guy-
console just because the Game Boy version is very slow and it's very limited on what it can do because of the 4-color palette. But the NES version has full color, and it's what everybody thinks. And so in 2010, they started the Classic Tetris World Championships, which was they got the best Tetris players in the world and had a competition. And for the first 7 years or seven out of 8 years was won by one guy, Jonas Neubauer.
Wow. Wait, hold on. a second.
Jonas Neubauer?
Yeah.
If they just started these in 2010, how'd they figure out who was the best
It's
Tetris
a
player in the
long,
world?
sordid history just because people have been laid claim to, I scored 1 million points. I got to level 29, or level 19. I got to, I did this. So they finally okay, the time for talking is over. Let's get everybody together and play in a room. And it's not where now, if you play 2-player Tetris on a modern Tetris, it's if you get a line, it adds a line to the other player's screen.
Right.
It's both games are completely independent. It's whoever can score the most points.
Right.
And there's been a lot of different rule changes. But ever since 2010, they kind of hit a wall with level 29, which they call the kill screen, because at level 29, when you're playing it like you and I would play it the regular way, where you just hold left or hold right to move the piece, you can't move the pieces fast enough on level 29 because they're falling so fast. But then another play type was called hyper tapping, which is you mash the button as quickly as possible, and that allowed people to kind of play beyond level 29, but not really, maybe get to level 35, level 40, and people got bigger and better. But then in 2021, I believe, this teenager at the time, he goes by the name of Cheese, that's his handle. He invented this technique called rolling, where you kind of press the buttons with your fingers, and then you roll your fingers underneath the controller. So instead of pushing,
you're pushing from
below.
pressure under pressure.
And so instead of hitting it
Rolling.
once, you're hitting it 4 times, which opened up the entire world.
But how could you do it that it just seems random and not accurate at all. You can do it that fast, that accurate.
They're rolling it underneath it. So as they see the piece and they just roll the bottom of the controller.
That's a game
So
changer.
is it a guess at that point?
No,
Do you know what he's doing?
No, because when the pieces are moving that fast, you're not thinking about where this piece is going. You're thinking about where the next piece is going. What you want to do is you have you want to build up your play field, because you only want to get Tetrises, because those give you the most points. And
What are
it's a score
Tetrises?
game.
Yeah.
Tetris is 4 lines disappearing at once.
Yeah, okay. That's
So
a
you wanna-
Tetris.
So what?
Tetrarch means 4. That's Spanish. Japanese? Latin.
Probably Latin.
That's Latin.
Greek,
That's Greek.
Japanese.
so the
That
pieces
sounds
are
right.
the pieces.
I
Are
don't
all,
know enough about Latin to dispute
Take
you,
it
but
from
that
me.
sounds
I
right.
think that's
But the pieces
Latin.
are all made up of four
Greek.
squares.
Okay.
They're called tetrominoes. But what you
They're
want
like
to do,
dominoes, but they're tetrominoes.
but what you want to do is build up your stack, which is with the pieces that you just use to fill, to build up a right well, so you can put the long bar and get a Tetris
And get it,
every
clear
time.
it.
So anyway, let me make a long story kind of short. It's for a long time nothing was happening, but then all of a sudden with this breakthrough of rolling, everything is happening, and the players are getting younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
So you made made worldwide news last year, last January, when this kid Blue Scooty, who was 13 at the time, he was the first person to crash the game, which means he was the first person to ever lose at Tetris by not getting to the top, because he cleared a line that crashed the game, because the code.
It wasn't written for that?
It wasn't written for that. The developers expected you to die at level 29, so the code slowly deteriorates over the course of the next, 100 levels.
Wait, so what level did he get to when he crashed?
I think it was 157.
Oh my God.
Wait, so they wrote enough? I don't understand code. I don't know computers.
So yeah, they wrote enough
but they
code.
wrote enough to no one's ever going to do this.
Yeah, and
but
so then they kept repeating
it's got to be
it.
simple code, though,
It's
right?
very
I mean,
simple.
we've got AI.
That's why it kind of breaks down. And, every 10 levels, every 10 lines, the colors change. Of the
Does
pieces.
it get faster as you go up?
Not after 29. They didn't expect anything to get.
They're like, no one's ever going
So
to
they're
beat
just
this.
expecting you to get fatigued.
Or
No,
just
they don't
not-
expect you to be able to play past 29.
You know what
They
this kind of
expect you
reminds
to
me
die
of?
immediately.
Is in basketball, like the dunk wasn't conceived in
Yeah.
basketball.
No
so
one
one
thought of the
day,
dunk.
some guy got tall enough and
Yeah.
could jump high enough to dunk. Then they started dunking from, let's say, 3 feet out, then 5 feet out, and then Jordan, changed
from
the
the
game
free
for the
throw
free throw
line.
line, which
Yeah.
makes me think one day somebody's going to dunk from the 3-point line.
You think so?
I think it's a matter of time. I mean,
Yeah.
like Todd's story, is like illustrative of this, is that they didn't expect anybody to get past 29, and then some kid figures out a new technique, and he's at level
500
130.
years, the dude's going to jump from half court
I mean,
and just shatter
Why not?
it.
So then, the colors start breaking down too. The color palettes, like they start getting weird. There's 2 levels in particular that are very difficult. The first one is called Dusk, where the pieces are so dark you can barely see them.
But
on the
why
screen.
is that? Because the
the code
computer
is so-
programmers
yeah,
couldn't do it?
No, just the code is old and
freaky.
it's just
Old code? It's digital.
Well, yes, but they didn't expect they're having to go through all these different memory places that the developers never intended for the code to do.
Is
So
this how the world ends?
probably
That? We didn't write enough code?
Just God
and
didn't
then
write
we
enough
just
code?
It's
Stop.
Y2K.
Yeah.
Just boom, Y2K, boom.
And so
disappears.
the first level that's very difficult is Dusk, where the pieces are dark. It's like a dark blue, a dark green, and then like a white maybe. That's very hard to see. And like the first time somebody got to it, they immediately died.
Yeah.
Then they got past it and like, oh, and then the next level is very bright colors. Like, oh, cool. Like I'm back in regular colors now.
Yeah.
The level immediately following that is known as charcoal, where some of the pieces are black.
But why? Like,
'Cause-
why does this happen?
Because the code
I don't
has-
understand computers.
because it has
So-
to go back and read the memory so
So
quickly.
that computers
and
are
it
like,
just
oh,
can't.
crap, we got to make something
Yeah.
up.
Yes, exactly.
But it's the same for everybody?
Yes.
I don't get
And
this.
so-
this is so wild.
And then normally,
this is how it ends.
so then like, Dusk was conquered, charcoal was conquered. That's level
Yeah.
like 157 and 159. Don't quote me on that, but it's around there.
Yeah.
But then
I won't quote you.
level
I'm not going to do it.
you usually get a color transition every 10 lines. But level 255 is different.
Jeez,
We're at
we're
255 now?
100 levels
Yes.
past. And that's a lot of rolling.
Yes, a lot of rolling. These games take, over an hour to get to this point. The pieces are all dark green, all of them. There's no other colors. It's just dark green.
No differentiation.
No differentiation. They're all dark green, and you need 810 lines to get past level 255 because the code is breaking.
And a dude did it.
Well, so
A Soviet?
people have gotten there, but then this player, I think he's 16 years old now. His handle is Dog Playing Tetris. He is
Maybe it's a dog.
he's a 2-time winner of
Have we thought of that?
the Classic Tetris World Championships and 1-time runner-up. He actually in COVID when they were doing the tournaments virtually.
Great time for Tetris.
Yeah, it was. They were doing the tournaments virtually. It was the entire the Classic Tetris World Championships. The finals was dog playing Tetris versus his brother Pixel Andy. So they're literally in.
Where are they from? Do you know?
They're American.
They're Americans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was COVID like the Super Bowl for people
I
who
gotta
play
say, it's
video
a
games?
great
Like,
time
you
for-
had
yeah,
a reason to stay
streamers,
at home
speed
all day
racing.
long.
Streamers like
Twitch,
it was
Twitchers.
There's a big
yeah,
renaissance.
Yeah, it was a
Twitchers,
huge,
tweakers, and
Huge.
speed racers.
So it was a huge moment in time for gamers, especially like people stream, like everybody's numbers went up.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got the game crashed. That made worldwide news with Blue Scooty. He's actually in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame.
Oklahoma has a sports hall of
Yeah.
fame? Why do they
So
have
he's
one?
up there with professional ball players.
Jim Thorpe and
Thorpe is an
Well,
Oklahoma
yeah.
guy. To put a video game player on the
It
same
was the first
pedestal as Jim Thorpe.
Well, that leads me to a question. Do these guys like doing this rolling technique or other stuff or mashing the buttons? Do you get injuries doing this?
no, I mean,
Carpal tunnel.
yeah, they haven't. Nobody's reported injuries of like there's some streamers like, oh, I had to take a break, my hands were hurting, but it's nothing like.
Well, they're over caffeinated,
Yeah.
right?
They're also still 13, 16. That's going to
Yeah.
come when they're like in their 30s. Like,
Yeah.
oh, my thumb doesn't work anymore.
yeah.
They do wear like
call.
like knitted gloves to like
Cut down the friction or
yeah,
something?
exactly.
I feel like there's caffeine.
But anyway,
injuries.
the game came
Celsius.
out in 1989, and like the kids that are dominating are like 15, 16 years old.
So is that cutting edge news you just gave us?
No.
Like, so what?
So this
you
happened-
texted me frantically.
I didn't text
You're
you.
like, I texted you. I called you. Let the record reflect. But you're like, good. That's huge news in Tetris. So what's the huge news?
The huge news is they got the game crash, and then the next barrier was called a rebirth, where you get to a level I don't know the name
Sounds scary.
the number of the level is, but it's a red level, and when you beat that level, the game recycles and starts at level 0.
So it's over.
So dog playing Tetris achieved the rebirth.
Is he immortal?
Is this breaking news?
Is he immortal?
No, he did it earlier this week.
That's breaking
That's
news.
breaking news.
That's
Believe
breaking
me, that's
news
pretty
for
cool.
us normies.
Yeah.
So he's immortal now.
Yeah, he's the first person.
Is he-
the first person to achieve rebirth? Now because he did it on a modified Tetris game where it takes out the crash bugs. So now the only obstacle left is achieving rebirth with a normal cartridge with
On
the
an
crash
NES.
bugs on the NES.
What are crash bugs?
So that's what causes the game to crash.
Right. Okay. So probably kind of sounds like that's not possible. The
Yeah,
bugs
it's
are
very-
built
it's-
in.
yeah, there's-
you can only blow the dust
Right.
out of
Well,
the
yeah,
cartridge
yeah.
so much.
How is it that everybody as a kid knew to do that, but we didn't have internet or phones
Same-
to
yeah,
text?
same thing we all
How did
knew.
we all know to blow in the
I
cartridge?
had a thing. Here's
Same-
the thing. I had Sega Channel.
Oh
growing
wow!
up.
What is Sega Channel?
Oh,
It was an online channel where you can play Sega games.
it was through your coaxial cable.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was
my
not
gosh.
online.
It was
DARPA
very
had not.
expensive.
DARPA/Satan had not invented
So-
the internet yet.
So there was a very famous game that only ever came out for Sega Channel. It was Mega Man: The Dr. Wily Wars,
Yep.
which was basically Mega Man 2 and 3
Matt immediately
on
was
the
like, yeah.
same Sega Genesis cartridge with updated
Yeah.
graphics.
Sega Channel was basically like DirecTV of Sega games. You just went into a menu and was like, I want to play Mega Man. I
Yeah.
And this
wanna
was
play.
online?
I used to play this awesome helicopter game. There's just
So Todd, like,
Sonic.
oh, I loved Sonic.
Sonic
Todd, you
was
know,
great.
I have to ask this question. So to achieve anything at that high a level, whether it's professional sports, the highest levels of the military, and maybe even Tetris, are these kids juicing? Like, are they on like
Are there
ADHD meds?
performance enhancing
Are
drugs
they
for
enhanced?
that?
Like, are they on?
I'm going to say that they are not. They're just
are you just saying
very
that, or do
focused.
you,
How many
on the
hours
task
a
at
day?
hand.
Did
I'm
these
just
kids
saying,
go
like,
to school?
they
Are
have
they
to-
home?
Yeah, they
homeschooled?
all go to school. It's just after school or
They're just-
some of them are in college. You're just like okay.
But
I got
how can
time.
they focus that long on one
Adderall.
thing? Right.
Adderall
So are
scripts
these
are
kids
big.
on Adderall? Are they taking
I
stuff
have
to
no
enhance
idea.
themselves?
I don't want to accuse these kids of anything, but Adderall scripts are a big issue in the speedrunning community. So I think that could be something to look
Speedrunning.
into.
He knows.
But these aren't speed runs. These are high scores.
Yeah, these are.
So these are scores. Now, well,
Idiot.
we're going to get the
What are
speed
you,
runs.
dumb? This isn't speed running. You know speed running. Explain for the viewers, all 10 of them, what speed running is.
Speed running is basically finishing a game as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So you're
Right now
a
for the-
Mario guy, right?
For the audience, how quickly
And
can
Mega
you
Man.
finish Mario?
Well,
'Cause we've all played
Mario
It's
3.
Mega
Yeah.
Man, right?
Well, I speedrun Mega Man, but a Mario 1, Super Mario Brothers for the NES, my PB personal best is 6 minutes and 4 seconds.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Which puts me at like 8,000th in the world.
That's in the world? Dude,
Well,
that's amazing.
of people who
That's
have speedrun.
unbelievable.
I'm not in the top. I'm not in the
And it
top
takes
8,000
minutes
of
to
like
finish the first
sleeping.
level.
Are you kidding me? That's pretty good.
Okay,
All right,
so
what's your
who-
Mega Man time?
My Mega Man time, I run the normal zipless category, which
What's
is
Mega Man's dog's name?
Rush.
Yeah, awesome.
I run the
he
normal
shoots down?
zipless category in Mega Man 2.
Sure, zipless.
It's,
What is zipless?
So a zip is when in Mega Man 2, it's when like you can get Mega Man into a wall and he'll just zip through the entire room inside that wall. And
Oh,
just
that's not fair.
get ejected out of the right side of the wall.
Seems like you're cheating.
Well, that's why they have two categories. They have
Okay.
zip, they have normal, and then they have regular, and then zipless. I run the zipless category on the normal difficulty, and my personal best is 32 minutes and 32 seconds.
And now, where in the world is that ranked?
That's like it fluctuates. It's only gone down since I posted it, but it's like about 186 now.
You're the 186th fastest Mega Man player in the world.
Of people
Are
that
you
have
kidding
submitted
me?
times.
That's legit.
What are the
in
margins
the friggin'
between
world?
1 and 186?
Yeah,
Uh,
how
you
wide
had
are
32
they?
Yeah, one
minutes.
It's like
is-
the 100-yard dash,
Is
right?
like,
it's like
yeah, one is like 28 minutes and like maybe a couple seconds.
4 minutes. 4
Yeah.
minutes between you and them.
Yeah,
That's
but
incredible.
that's a long 4
Well,
minutes.
4 minutes.
Like one and well, the difference between 1 and 5 is probably 0.3 of a second.
Golly, I've never met anyone who's that good at anything.
Yeah.
So hat tip to
Yeah,
Todd.
that's impressive.
I don't even know where to begin with that.
This kind of goes back to my basketball analogy.
Mhm.
As these games get older and like other generations are playing them,
Yep.
they're just getting better and better at
Yeah.
it than like you
'Cause-
were when you were 14, right?
Of course.
What's your take on? I mean, this is the complete opposite of open world games,
Mhm.
right? So, what's your take on those? It's just like, well, it's not.
Like open world games.
Yeah, it's like you
not a-
can't just run around
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto and punch people in the face.
I'm,
like,
I'm not as big of a fan. I like much more linear games where like here's you
Frogger.
start here.
Frog- you know.
You have a clear objective.
Yes.
Get to the finish. Those are the games that I like. Those are the games I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Todd, moving slightly away from video games, how do you solve the crisis in Gaza?
Yeah. I feel like if you're top 200 on Mega Man, you know you've cracked the code on the Middle
Yeah.
East.
Yeah, you should be in these meetings.
No.
Are you talking to Trump?
I have not been.
No. Well, he should talk to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's as good a place as any.
Well, but between Israel and Palestine, which side is the Reploids and which side is the Mavericks? In your
I
opinion?
don't understand.
I
don't
actually
understand
don't
this.
understand that question.
Mega Man X.
See, I kind of fell off after the NES.
Gotcha.
NES. What's the best game system?
I like the NES, but
I'm a
it's open
Sega
to
guy.
debate.
So you're wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Super
NES
Nintendo is always.
I'm gonna go PlayStation. Is that lame? Is that too contemporary? I'm gonna go PlayStation.
That's
PlayStation
retro now,
PS2. PS2, right?
PS2 is retro.
You
It's retro.
on Tetris, NES Power Glove.
You could.
Would
but
that
not
be
very well.
faster?
No,
You couldn't
not at all.
roll it?
No. The Power Glove is one of the worst controllers ever made.
But it's
You never
such
played
a
like, the
good
Mike
idea.
Tyson boxing?
No,
It's a good idea.
I mean, the commercials were great. We all remember
Yeah.
the commercials.
Yeah.
Them knocking out
Duck
Mike
Hunter was
Tyson
great
with,
on
Hunter
NES,
was
though,
awesome.
right?
with the uppercut.
Yeah.
I feel like Duck Hunter was before its time. Like,
Remember
nobody appreciated how good
Mike
that
Tyson's Punch Out, and then Mike Tyson beat up Robin Givens, and then it became Punch Out.
No, well,
He punched out Robin Givens.
that was his. He had a license deal, and his license ran out, and they didn't.
No,
wanna-
it's because he beat
they
up
didn't
Robin
wanna-
Givens.
You know, it'd be great if
They
that
wanna
game was
renew
made
it.
nowadays. Somebody would have had a patch to make one of the people he fights Robin Givens.
Well, Mike Tyson
I'm
doesn't
sure
fight
it's been
anybody.
done.
I'm sure.
Has anyone done that?
No,
They haven't put Robin Givens in
No.
face
Probably
as like,
Flash games from like
the
2004.
Sandman.
no. Well, Mike, you're not Mike Tyson. You're Little Man.
Well, yeah, you're Little Mac, who was a great character, had a hell of a heart.
I also have an official time in the Mike Tyson fight in Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Okay.
It's 4 minutes and 2 seconds
You
in-game
beat
time.
the game in 4 minutes?
No, just Mike Tyson.
Just Mike. It took you 4 minutes to beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah, it
I
was-
thought
it
you
was in-game-
die one
in-game
punch and
time.
it's over.
Yeah, you just dodge him.
He says it like it's so easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it still took you 4 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's like 110th in the world for the Mike Tyson fight.
We are amongst.
You are 1/10 in the world for
Yeah,
Mike.
the record is 2 minutes flat.
Remember Piston
And-
Honda?
yeah,
I love Piston Honda.
they give you a TKO from Tokyo.
Yeah, that's right. In between rounds, he would just say generic, random Japanese sounding stuff. It's so funny. What did he say? The TKO from Tokyo
Yeah,
was
that's
one,
all
but
I
he's like,
remember.
he would.
I don't usually get to the second round of Piston
Oh
Honda.
well, it must be nice. That's funny.
Todd, where are you from?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Hey.
We're going to
We're
have...
doing the weather.
Yeah, we're doing the... Todd's going to read the weather today.
All right, read the weather for us.
Los Angeles.
I can't believe he beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
The Sandman was out. Bald Bull.
Do you have any other records?
So I've submitted records to all of these are.
Is there an
submitted to
international governing body?
No, but there's a speedrun.com is moderated by hundreds of people in the speedrun community, which is kind
By
of
hundreds of people, you mean one guy, probably Michael Moore, in his basement, like.
No, they're all the different.
If people want to look you up, how would they find your record? Like, what-
ToddThurman.com.
It's just dub_T, TEE, DUB_TEE.
I didn't understand anything you just said.
Dub underscore
DUB
TEE.
Yes.
TEE. Okay.
Dub T.
All right.
Do we get into the icon or do we save that?
No, yeah, I changed it. But the
Stay
only
tuned,
other
folks.
times I've submitted, and Mega Man records are kept at megamanleaderboards.net.
Okay.
Okay. And they can find Dub TEE
yeah.
there too.
Dub
Yeah.
underscore T.
If you're number
Yeah.
one in any of these, do you get a cash prize? You get endorsements? Are these guys endorsed? Are you making money from this?
No, I'm not
should.
making any money.
You should.
Not you, but like if you're number one for knocking out
You're not-
Tyson or
you're
beating
not
Mega
getting-
Man, are you making money?
You're not getting. I mean, you might get more notoriety for your streams, and you can make money that way.
Got it.
But you're not gonna.
Do you have a
there's no-
Twitch stream?
I do, but I haven't streamed.
Dub
in-
underscore T.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
can people follow you?
Do you get money
Twitch,
from that?
Twitch, I don't get.
Is
any
it
money.
based by followers?
Yeah, it's based on
I don't get this
how
internet
how
stuff.
much you stream, how many people watch you, and
Yeah.
then
If you're an affiliate. And all
yeah,
that,
then you once you meet the minimum threshold, you qualify for their affiliate program.
Okay.
Then once you meet the higher threshold, you qualify for their partner program. Then you can.
But you're clearly legit at this stuff, and it wasn't
Yes,
enough.
But I
to-
have not streamed in 2 years.
Yeah.
Last
what
game I
gets
streamed
you.
was Castlevania.
Nice.
You know what I like is Dig Dug.
It's a great game.
Dig Dug.
I got 16 like 02 in Castlevania, which
Oh,
is like
get out of here.
I didn't submit it.
Get
in,
right out of town.
I didn't submit it because it would be like 250th.
Dig Dug and Galaga.
Yeah, great.
That's a good one.
All right, Todd. This is a part of the show where we read the weather. You are our guest. Read the weather for Los Angeles, California.
It is 82 degrees and sunny in Los
Warm.
Angeles, California.
Well, what's the air quality?
Air quality seems to be very poor. It's yellow
Checks
and
out.
red
Yeah.
all over the map. Santa Ana, Long Beach, anything along the coast is green. Anything inland, Torrance, Inglewood is very low air quality.
What's the highs and lows?
Anaheim, where Disneyland is, that's very poor as well.
Have you been to Disneyland in Anaheim?
I have.
Have you been to the one in Florida?
I have. I mean,
Which one's better?
Well, if you're going to
Don't be biased because you're from California.
Yes, but so you can't compare Disney World to Disneyland because Disney World is massive. It's like a huge, completely different thing.
Okay.
But if
It
you're
is?
yeah.
So I've never been to Disneyland.
So
I
Di- so-
assumed it was the same.
So Disney World has a bunch of like Disney Worlds,
Yeah.
a bunch of different worlds.
yeah, Epcot, all that
yeah,
crap
all
is
these
there.
different parks. Disneyland is
Couple
Disneyland.
rides. Just a couple rides.
So if you were to compare apples to apples, the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World compared to Disneyland, because that's essentially the same thing. Disneyland is better only because it's bigger, it's more spread out, and has like one or two more rides. But overall, the Walt Disney World is better because there's way more things to do there. You can spend a week there, whereas Disneyland is a day trip.
Why don't you close us out with the weekend forecast for the people in Los Angeles? Let them know what they can expect other than murder.
Well, the high on Friday is going to be 85 with the low being 58. Partly
beautiful.
cloudy skies.
no humidity if it's that
Yes.
low.
Well, there's no humidity anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Ever? Never?
Maybe like
What are the Santa Ana winds? Should
They're
we
ju-
save that?
Santa Ana winds are very.
That's a hot wind.
It's a hot wind.
That
It
comes
really
off the ocean?
spreads, wildfires too.
Is that an ocean thing?
I don't know what causes it.
I don't
but-
understand.
What
No
causes wind?
one- God.
Yeah.
That's probably
And then
right.
Saturdays, the high is 83 with the low of 58. So we're kind of saying the exact same
Kind of sounds like it's always
With,
nice there.
with sunny. And then Sunday is going to be sunny and the high of 79 and a
Oh,
low of
beautiful.
57. Where we are today, I think the high was 65. And
It was
gonna-
cool.
Well, if you're going to be
Felt
murdered in
great.
California, do
That's
it
the
during
weather
nice
you
weather.
wanted,
Yeah.
then.
It's going to get
That
all
is
the way
great.
down to 54 next week. It's
Todd!
low.
Todd,
Thank
you're
you.
an amazing man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are.
Quite the character.
You're a
Love having you
treasure.
on.
Thanks.
National treasure.